Welcome friends to another r/NuclearRevenge video. It's fun to watch some nuclear revenge blowing up. The only thing I love watching blow up more are the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Midnight Slayer 0372. He lied to me that he was divorced, so I destroyed his reputation, his marriage, and got him fired. When I was a naive 24-year-old, I met a charming and very smart and way older man. We'll call him Jake for the story. His sister is Dana, and I'm Gina. Now to the story. Jake was 42, recently divorced, or so he told me, and had a kid that he would see the weekends. We meet online through a poetry website where both of us used to write. He was very aloof and stern on his comments and not very popular on the website because he always used to come off like an arrogant jerk, but I really liked his poems regardless of his personality, and that's how it began. I commented on one, and he instantly PM'd back praising my writing and asking me if we could collaborate on a duet together. I've already done it 1,000 times with a few friends and people on the site that I respected, so I said sure. So long story short, we met on Hotmail Messenger. This was nearly 11 years ago, kids, so no WhatsApp, although we did chat on Facebook too. This will come relevant later. Long story short, we instantly connected. He was funny, handsome, and really sweet underneath all his bravado. And his dark sense of humor was right up my alley. We spent months pulling all-nighters just talking and writing together. Not humble bragging, but I was pretty popular on the site because I won a few awards, so by association, he became popular too. People started reading Jake's poems and commented, and obviously he got a huge head about it. But I digress. Our relationship became more serious after he confessed that he was falling for me, and I was smitten, so I went along with it. We talked about my recent breakup, and he assured me that he would never lie to me because of course he used that, witch of his ex-wife cheated on him, and he was devastated until he met me. I was shocked at how bad his ex was, but assured him that I was all in, and I meant that. One important detail about our turbulent romance is that he was in South America. He's from there, and I was still living in Italy in my hometown. So after almost 2 years of excuses for how tied up on work he was, I decided to surprise him with a visit. I bought my ticket and it was literally like a dream. He picked me up, we kissed, hugged, and he took me to his beach house, which should have been my first red flag, but I was dumb, young, and in love, saying that it would be so much easier and fun for me doing touristy stuff on a beach port than staying in his suburbs house with no car. Because I told him in such short notice, he didn't have the time nor the means to take time off. Which again was a blatant lie, because he was one of the partners of the company, but again, I bought it, and off I went on my own for almost an entire week that I was there. He only spent one night with me, and the rest of the week just picked me up from wherever it was that I ended up wandering, and we hang out for a few hours, make love, and then he just drops me off at the house. I know most of you are thinking, come on OP, just get your head out of your butt and realize what a bunch of BS that is. And believe me, now writing this, I realized how much of an idiot I was. But it gets better. The day before I have to get back to Italy, he took me to dinner with his 6-year-old son and his sister. I was super happy to meet his family and son, but got caught off guard when he just introduced me as his friend from Italy dropping in town for tourism. His sister was super sweet, albeit a bit awkward, and his son was adorable. We ate, talked, and off we went. He picked me up first thing in the morning and dropped me off at the airport. Now that you got the full story, I'll get to the good part. 2 days later, and still a bit jet-lagged, I got a very interesting email from his sister Dana. Her email was short and very simple. Dear Gina, I know that you might think I was weird and maybe a bit rude when we met, but it was only because I was tricked by Jay to join the dinner with his kid. He never mentioned that you guys were dating, but after confronting Jake, he confessed and begged me not to tell anyone or his marriage will be ruined. But you're such a sweet and young girl that doesn't deserve his deceit. Jake's still married and never left their home. Don't just take my word for it. And Dana sent me pictures of his real Facebook profile and, surprise, the perfect little family. I thanked her and shut down my computer. I was devastated. I really thought Jake was the love of my life and was seriously considering moving there. I spent all night crying and drinking wine until I got myself the worst migraine. But the heartbreak lasted about 12 hours. At 4 a.m. I got up, showered, made a fresh pot of coffee, and started planning my revenge. I was hurt, yes, but also so angry that he not only deceived me, but dragged his sister and his innocent child into his lie. I was at the other side of the world, and I didn't have the money to pay someone to kick his butt or egg his car. But as my Sicilian father would say to me, if someone slaps you, don't turn the other cheek, cut off their freaking hand. And so I did. Cue my sweet revenge. I sat down at my desk and turned on the computer and logged into his Hotmail. I didn't have the password, but I knew him well enough to answer his 3 security questions in the forgot password section. 1, 2, 3, boom baby, I'm in, and holy crap. This arrogant piece of human poop was not only dating me, but 2 other girls. I quickly logged onto his Facebook too because he had everything linked, the naivety. So I quickly changed all his passwords to I'm a jerk and discovered that his personal email was also connected to his work account. I dug through his emails for 2 hours. This idiot never erased anything, so we had more than 5,000 emails until I found something very interesting. The girls he was also seeing and their very hot email exchanges. Noodle pics included. So what did I do? You guessed it. I crafted a very lengthy and explicit email with pics and chat logs attached, confessing to Jake's wife, posing as him obviously, begging for forgiveness and declaring how much of a crap person I was, and as proof of my willingness to change and transparency, I was sending this email to the girls too. But that I did it only because I was a closeted gay, and the thought of being a player would help me forget how much I really loved guys. That I was sick of pretending and hoped she could move on and maybe be friends. But not only to them. I copied the entire list of contacts, including the CEO and partners of the company he worked for, his parents, and Dana, of course. This email was perfection. All the pictures and chats, myself included, he ever exchanged with any other woman. I copied myself on the list obviously as a countermeasure and move on to part 2 of my plan. I changed all of his Facebook and declared that I was so relieved that people finally knew who I was. The pride flag was his new wall picture, and his profile picture was a photoshopped picture of 2 guys kissing. I created 5 different accounts on gay websites with all of his info, including his phone number, and started to chat with a bunch of guys until, out of nowhere, this guy sent me, better yet, he sent Jake a message. Tony was his old uni friend that had always been secretly lusting for him for years, and although I felt bad for this later, I set up a date. Part 3 of my plan. 1 week after this massive internet blowout, and his family and friends angrily called him all sorts of names, and got fired because his bosses didn't want the bad press. So Jake, trying to make amends with his family and friends, made a barbecue for his birthday. But I would have paid 1 year worth of salary just to see his face and his guests when in the middle of their celebration, Tony appeared with a bottle of champagne and bags full of lube and toys to celebrate privately, as I asked. Apparently there was a huge fight and everyone left Jake, flustered and angry, crying because some psycho wanted to ruin his life. I blocked him and forgot about everything until 6 months ago when he out of the blue sent me a message on Instagram asking me why I disappeared and didn't support him when he was at his lowest. And oh boy, the satisfaction I felt when I only replied back, "Sorry Jake, but I think everything you got was karma for all the lies and time wasted you fed me. Good luck. Oh, and by the way, it was always me." I then blocked him and made my account private. Jake did try to call a few mutual friends to try to give them my number, but they ignored him. They also got the infamous email. So yeah, I got my revenge, and it was worth every single hour. I know, I'm freaking petty. So there is a lot that happened in this story. Do you guys believe that this is actually true, that this actually happened? Or do you think this is full of embellishment and maybe made up for the clicks? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And our final story of the day is by Throwaway 2021-1250. He scoffed at me, so I got him fired and sent back to his country. So let me preface this by saying I do feel somewhat bad about the events that transpired, but it would be eating my conscience to say I didn't do it on purpose. Because I did. I started my first full-time job when I was 20, fresh off college and ready to take on the world. I resided in a Middle Eastern country where people got brought in frequently by employers. And one mistake could cost them everything. I was outside this because I was a resident of the place despite not being from there. Anyways, when I first started, I got along very well with my coworker, despite the fact that he came off as a lot of bad things for me. We tried hanging out, but the more I got to know him, the more disgusted I became. He was sexist, a purist of his religion, where he believes execution of certain people should be allowed, and he was extremely homophobic. But nonetheless, I tried making friends with him because I was open to anything. In our office, we have a portable Wi-Fi that he took with him every day. Free internet, and I never commented on this because I have my own. I can afford it, and so can he. More on this later. The closer I got to him, the more he opened up, but in the worst ways. He would send me lewd images while we were in the office of women, talk about drug use, and sometimes disappear from work for hours on end while I manned the office. Like I said, I was 20, I was still young and naive, and I tried my best to seem calm and friendly. I wanted to make a good impression. This man, however, was the opposite. He was several years older than me and acted like he was above me through every step, but I ignored it because I wanted to be civil. Sometimes I would help him with his work, until eventually his work became mine. He would expect me to do it without even lending a hand. I didn't even say anything, I just did it. His missing from the office became more frequent. Sometimes he would only be at work for a measly 2 hours out of 9 hours. Popping in and out, and the office manager's too chicken poop to say anything to the GM. Then there's the lateness, where I would come in on time every day, and he'd come an hour late. Still, I kept my mouth shut. It escalated to him adjusting attendance records so it seemed like he wasn't absent, even though his absences were frequent. Unfortunately, he was put in charge of that too. I remained quiet throughout all of this, remained civil, until finally I spoke to the general manager about pursuing a different line of work. I was always into graphic design, and they needed some work done, so I offered to do it. But during this time, I couldn't afford much things anymore because I had to help pay for bills for my parents. So I usually just walked to work back and forth every day and limited my eating to once a day, meaning the Wi-Fi was no longer something I could afford. So as an agreement, I could take the office Wi-Fi with me and work on designs from home. However, my coworker didn't agree to this and pretty much attacked me with a barrage of insults. He scoffed at the fact that I needed the Wi-Fi to do design work and said I was a joke. I've suppressed the majority of what the conversation held, but it went something like this. I'd say, "I just need it tonight, you can have the Wi-Fi tomorrow." He says, "Why? It's not yours." I say, "I need to do some design work." He says, "Yeah, me too. I need to do that too, so leave it here." I couldn't remember much of what else he said, but there was a scoff after he said that, and he made fun that my designs sucked and that I should just stop while I'm ahead. My blood boiled and I reached the point of no return. I immediately phoned the office manager and talked about the situation and how if I don't get the Wi-Fi, I'll complain to the general manager, who did in fact give me his blessing, unlike this turd. He immediately called my coworker and told him to give me the Wi-Fi, which he did. And that was that. Except, I'm a petty person, and I'm not about to let some jerk get off with a slap on the wrist. The next day, I went to the head office and had a meeting with the GM. I spoke to him about all the misconducts this guy had, how he's always late, never in the office, changes his absences, steals money sometimes, etc. I spilled my heart out on all of his wrongdoings, showing the messages and photos I was sent during the shift that I never asked for, and how I'm doing all of his work. It escalated to a point where he got brought into the main office for a meeting, where I proceeded to berate him in front of the manager, and he could only try to defend himself, but I was prepared. It turns out the office manager never even spoke to the general manager about his misconduct. Afterwards, he was brought back to the office, having been yelled at by both me and the general manager. And I could say that's where it ends. Except it's not. After he left, the general manager realized if I had been doing all the work, then why didn't I say anything? I responded that I was simply there to work and to help. However, with what just happened and the fact that this guy was getting paid more than me, I've decided that if he's here, then I won't be staying in the company. I gave him a choice, me or this guy. The answer was obvious because by the next day, he was handed a termination letter and another letter that states he's been booked a ticket and he has to head back to his home country within a month. And he's barred from entering the country for several years due to his public misconduct that was reported by a certain someone to the local authorities. I could say that was the end, but okay, this is the last one, I swear. See, he had a girlfriend back home, a fiance more like, whom he'd been cheating on. Funny enough, he added me on Facebook when we first met, and she proceeded to add me too, because he talks about me to her. Well, our messages weren't just inappropriate, it showed details of him cheating on her, with me questioning him if that's a good idea. Every screenshot sent. All the photos of the women he's been with sent. She was livid, and I kept apologizing for keeping her in the dark, but that I thought she deserved to know at least. I haven't spoken to her since, but judging from the fact that her Facebook status no longer states she's engaged to him, is enough of a confirmation. I sent him one last thing before blocking him on every social media we've been connected in. You deserve this, craphead. It's been several months since then and I'm thriving at work. I got a raise, I have better coworkers, and I'm getting a promotion. As for him, well, he's out there somewhere in the world. Who knows, and who cares, right? We're no longer in the same country, so whatever else happens to him no longer phases me. Though he did once send me a photo of his fake Italian ID because he was planning on illegally migrating there next year. I'm on the fence if I should send it to the authorities in Italy or not, just as a precaution. I might consider migrating there at some point myself. Considering this guy's track record, I don't think it hurts to also hand that ID over. I mean, for all we know, if that guy got into Italy, he would just mess stuff up there for somebody else too. You're probably saving people grief. I will say though, this is definitely a nuclear revenge. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of both of these stories that I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.